Roman Travers, Magic Talk.
You know what? We can't go to work for a while in the big 09. You can elsewhere. Auckland's in lockdown level 3 and the rest of the country in 2. And in the workplace, they can get pretty heated, and sometimes that comes down to a lack of trust. Someone who knows all about trust and how to rebuild your workplace is Harold Hillman, our leadership coach. G'day, Harold.
Good morning, Roman.
Man, where were you? Were you lying on the couch in your Ugg boots last night when that news came through about the alert level changes?
I was hosting some friends here. Dinner. So we had good music on, a good vibe, really lively conversation, and then we all got that alert on our mobile phones, and you could see the mood deflate almost immediately. But we revved it back up. We all agreed that this is a long game.
Yeah.
And so we were able to just sort of lift the energy after about 5 minutes of disappointment.
I must have missed that invitation, Harold. Was I supposed to be there? I can't recall.
You're in the next one. Roman.
All right. So how do we build trust? We have trust with our partners, with our children, but in the workplace, is it a different kind of trust?
It basically is the same. We know that success in life, both in our personal space, but also at work, it really does require strong relationships. And if you think about all what you would call strong relationships in your life with people who you find really compelling, who you can just be yourself with, they usually are built on a solid foundation of trust. Trust defined simply is the firm belief in the reliability, the truthfulness, or the ability of someone or something. There are some factors that you can definitely focus on to strengthen relationships, particularly if you want to influence successful outcomes. Certainly at work, that should be everyone's objective. And that's one of the reasons why, whether you're talking about a team or the relationship between any two people, it really does start with just basically honing in on, do we trust each other? Is there a solid degree of trust between us?
Interesting, actually, when you think about that. We always get a bit dubious about certain people, but what about turning that on to ourselves? How do we know that people trust us, and what are the 4 factors that determine whether people are willing to trust you or not?
There are 4 things to keep your eye on, and these come from a book called The Trusted Advisor, which was published 2 decades ago. I use the trust equation, that's what it's called in the book, to just give leaders a sense of confidence that you really can. If a relationship feels like it's disconnecting a bit, there's some things to focus on. The first one is credibility, and that is tantamount to believability. Are you good at what you do? And I use the analogy of a saw with a dull blade. And sometimes, particularly in that technical space, if you're in a role that requires you to be technically savvy and to keep yourself current, sometimes you have to sharpen your blade in order to sustain credibility, and that means additional training or staying across the latest trends, best practice, those types of things. It helps to read, stay updated, and to reflect your knowledge in conversations with people. Let people hear that you are current at your craft. That enhances credibility. Sometimes it's not technical skill, Roman, in terms of credibility. It may be influence skills. So you may be excellent at your technical craft, but you may not know how to lead a team, or you may not be really good at making a presentation or a pitch to sell what you do. And then the final component around credibility is just you may be good technically and with influence, but you may be lacking in context. Sometimes when people are new to a team or a company, they haven't quite learned the language yet. So people may wonder, do you live in our world? Do you know us well enough? It helps to get out and about around your credibility so that your language begins to reflect the world that you're living in. So that's credibility. The second factor, Roman, and we can all relate to to this, is reliability. This is about consistency. It's a big part of your personal brand. Are you consistent in delivering what people need, both in terms of the quality of the work you deliver, but also when you agreed you would deliver it? And when people give you an inconsistent experience, they start to back off a little bit and consider alternative solutions. And so sometimes people are what do we call it, time poor. They don't manage their time well, and as a result of that, people then experience them in an inconsistent way. It helps to be reliable. The third factor in terms of enhancing trust is, from the trust equation, is intimacy.
Oh.
Intimacy. And this is spending enough time with people for them to know a bit about you. Sometimes we're racing about and we're a blur as we move in with, very quickly around the workplace, having 30-second conversations, 1-minute conversations, as opposed to really getting to know a person a bit more in terms of, maybe you grew up in the same town or country. Maybe you went to the same school. Maybe you have friends in common. You faced into similar challenges. There's this thing around connection when people believe that you can relate to them in terms of their life's experiences. And so it does help very often to just go for a coffee. Don't go to focus on any work. Just go for a coffee and talk about your family or where you grew up, those types of things. So that's the third factor, Roman. And then the fourth one is, it's called self-orientation. The authors of the book, The Trusted Advisor, depict this as an equation. The first three variables, credibility, reliability, and intimacy, on the numerator. The denominator is called self-orientation, and that can bring it all down quickly. That can destroy trust. That weighs a lot. If people believe that it's all about you, that your language and your actions reflect that you are in this for you, as opposed to in this for them or in this for the team. People infer a lot based on what they see and what they hear. And sometimes a person's language conveys that, hey, I need you to be a part of this so that I benefit, as opposed to we benefit. Watch that the tendency sometimes to overemphasize what you need as opposed to what's in the best interest of the other person or the team.
Very good. So the 4 points again: credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-orientation. So I think it's fair to say that I'm speaking for me now and the rest of the country. Once we've been betrayed, once that trust is broken, it's very hard to go back there again. Is there such a scenario where that trust is irreparable? And if so, what's the best strategy to use when that's the case?
One of the best strategies to do if you feel trust unraveling in a relationship is to deal with it sooner than later. The longer you let it go, the longer you start to build theories about what may be going on with the other person. And when you start to build a theory in your head, you tend to then see things that or hear things that reinforce that. So before you build a theory about what may be going on, to just sit down with the person and go, hey, we don't feel as connected as we once were. Anything going on, anything we need to talk about, to see if you can jump on it sooner than later. There is such a thing, though, Roman, about trust being irreparable at times. Sometimes it has gone over that slippery slope. That's certainly the case in personal relationships where people decide to leave each other because they can't come back. They can't get that theory out of their head. If that's the case on a team, it really then means that the leader has to make an important decision about whether or not then it's healthy for two people who just don't trust each other to continue to try to make it work, as opposed to looking for alternatives in that type of a situation. You can, I guess the point I want to make in this conversation is that you can actually strengthen trust, but sometimes when it's really broken, when somebody has really let you down, it may be better to just part ways.
Yeah, exactly. Harold Hillman making a lot of sense as always. He's an executive leadership coach with the Sigmoid Curve Consulting Group. www.sigmoidcurve.com is how you get in touch with Harold.